Hey everyone, tonight we're diving into the story of the cat who guarded the Chronicles. But before you settle in, take a second to hit that like button and subscribe only if you truly enjoy this kind of content. I would love to know where you're watching from and what time it is for you, so drop that in the comments. It's always amazing seeing people from all over the world tuning in. Now, dim the lights, maybe switch on a fan for that cozy background, and let's drift into tonight's story together. The wind outside the monastery walls is the kind that nudges the shutters and then politely backs away. You hear it, soft and uncertain, rushing past stone and timber like a timid guest unsure if it's welcome. Inside, the flicker of candlelight paints golden loops on wooden beams. The air smells faintly of beeswax and something older vellum, maybe ink and fur. A shape moves slowly along the windowsill. Not a ghost unless ghosts wear whiskers and knock ink pots over for sport. It's a cat. A round, self-important tabby with half a tail and all the attitude of a minor cleric. He pauses, looks at you like you've already done something wrong, and then curls himself atop a bundle of parchment as if he owns both it and the secrets inside. Welcome to the scriptorium. It's the 14th century, probably. Maybe. Historians argue about which fire destroyed the last reliable records. Let's not get into it. The scriptorium is the beating heart of this quiet monastery. Not that it beats quickly, more of a slow, meditative thump, like a sleepy drum echoing between stone walls. You're in the Benedictine Abbey of somewhere quite cold but picturesque, and your job is well, not much. You're visiting, observing, trying to stay awake while monks copy the same Latin phrase over and over again. You're here to witness a rather unremarkable day, one filled with ink-stained fingers, snoring friars, and one very proud feline. But don't let that fool you. This day holds secrets buried deep in fur and footnotes. Before we go further, a gentle reminder. If you're enjoying this slow slip into the past, do tap that little like button. Subscribe if you want more soft-footed history, and let us know in the comments where and when you're listening from. Midnight in Manila? Afternoon in Amsterdam? Tell us. Now let's ease into tonight's journey, with a cat, a candle, and the soft scratching of quills. You blink slowly, already halfway into a nap. The scriptorium hums around you, like an old man humming to himself as he mends shoes. There's a rhythm here, a routine. The monks write, murmur prayers, write some more. The ink smells sharp. The parchment has a texture like dried skin because, well, it is. You watch Brother Ambrose across the table. He's in his 50s, though time is more conceptual in these robes. He dips his quill with excruciating care. One wrong flick, and he'll spend an hour scraping off the mistake with a pumice stone. Medieval editing tools weren't exactly ergonomic. The cat, he has a name, of course. Rufus stands and stretches. He yawns dramatically, then hops down onto the floor with the gravity of an elder statesman. You follow his path as he prowls the edges of the room, occasionally sniffing the sandals of monks who pretend not to notice. Officially, animals aren't allowed in sacred workspaces. Unofficially, Rufus has seniority. One obscure fact, before we drift too far. Cats like Rufus were deliberately kept in libraries and scriptoriums during the Middle Ages to prevent rats and mice from gnawing through manuscripts. Monasteries even issued written receipts for cat maintenance. Imagine expensing kibble in Latin. Outside the thick glass window, The sun melts low over the hills. You hear the faint tolling of a bell goblin is coming. Evening prayer. Soon the scribes will close their books, stretch their aching backs, and shuffle toward the chapel. Not Rufus, though. He guards the Chronicles. That's what the monks call the big book near the hearth, an oversized collection of local annals, saints' days, and mildly embellished miracles. It's been growing for nearly a century. Rufus has slept on it since birth. Coincidence? Probably not. As you stand and follow him, you notice something curious. A loose thread peeking out from the binding. Just one, like the book is ... unraveling. But that's for later. Right now, the candles hiss. The fire sighs. Rufus purrs like a lullaby machine set to ancient wisdom. You probably won't make it through this day. And honestly, that's fine. Let's keep drifting. A monastery at night settles into a kind of velvet hush. You walk softly now, as if noise itself might be sacrilegious. Rufus trots ahead of you, tail high, stopping occasionally to sniff corners or stare at shadows as if daring them to explain themselves. You pass the refectory empty, save for a few forgotten crusts and a jug of something that smells like fermented courage. The monks have retreated to prayer, and the building echoes with the quiet kind of silence, the kind that's had centuries to perfect itself. As you round a corner, you see it again, the Chronicles still resting by the hearth, still warm from candlelight. You'd swear Rufus nods at it before jumping up and resuming his post, paws tucked, eyes half-lidded. The Chronicles themselves are a marvel, bound in leather thicker than your boots, stitched with sinew, and clasped shut with an iron lock no one uses anymore. Inside are entries from abbots long gone, records of floods, of feasts, of that one goose who supposedly spoke Latin for a week and then exploded. One major fact: many medieval libraries chained their most precious books to shelves, not out of paranoia, but necessity. Parchment was expensive, copying took years, and a single missing text could erase generations of thought. Books were sacred, irreplaceable, and very tempting to sticky fingers, which makes Rufus, in his own way, an ancient alarm system. You sit beside him on the warm stone, and he deigns to lean against your leg. His fur hums gently. You let your head rest against the cool wall. The scent of smoke, dust, and something herbal lavender maybe curls in the air. Here's something weird. A few monastic orders believed cats had spiritual significance. Some saw them as protectors against evil spirits. Others, less charitably, thought cats were spying for witches. The duality of feline. Rufus, for his part, seems unbothered by theology. His eyes close, his breath slows, and beside him, yours does too. The bell tolls. You count the rings. 9, maybe 10. It's easy to lose track here. A soft shuffling alerts you to a presence. It's Brother Willem, the youngest of the scribes. 18, freckled, and always 3 steps behind his own thoughts. He notices you sitting there and offers an awkward bow, which Rufus pointedly ignores. Evening, Willem whispers, as if afraid the stone might disapprove. I left my notes ... He tiptoes past and lifts a roll of parchment from a side table. As he turns to go, he pauses, glancing at the Chronicles. Do you ever wonder, he murmurs, if they're still watching us? The ones who wrote all this? You do, actually, but you don't say it out loud. Willem nods to himself, then adds, I tried to read one of the entries. from 1284, I think. It talks about a star that fell into the lake and turned the fish to silver. No one else remembers it. Historians still debate whether that falling star was a meteor, a comet, or just an enthusiastic metaphor. Either way, the silver fish never came back. Rufus stretches, a yawn full of fangs, and rolls over dramatically onto his back, tail twitching. The moment feels still, oddly sacred. Then something small and fast darts across the floor, a mouse. Willem freezes. You blink. Rufus becomes a blur. The chase lasts all of 10 seconds. The mouse vanishes under a bench, and Rufus, apparently satisfied that it learned its lesson, returns without a kill, just a glare. It's not about the hunt, it's about the principle. Willem exhales. He's better than the traps, he mutters, before disappearing down the hall. You stay a little longer, listening to the slow crackle of the fire. The Chronicles wait. Rufus guards. Time passes like honey, and somewhere down the corridor, a bell chimes once. A sleepy reminder that even in the quietest places, stories move. You settle in, letting your breath follow the rhythm of purring and parchment. Let's continue walking gently through this world. You wake, or rather, you realize you never quite fell asleep. The fire has died down to embers. The monastery sleeps. Somewhere down the corridor, you hear a creaking floorboard that might be a monk on night watch, or a ghost with good manners. Rufus is still there. Of course he is. Sprawled like royalty in front of the Chronicles. One paw on the book as if swearing an oath. His ears twitch in his sleep. You wonder what a cat dreams about in a monastery. Ink pots? Fat mice? The theological implications of yarn? The room feels even older at night. Shadows lean longer. The stones seem heavier. You stretch your back, feeling the stiffness of medieval floor sitting, which is, frankly, a strong argument for modern cushions. There's movement near the archway. A new figure. Brother Gervis. Gervis is older than parchment. He walks like he's made of sticks wrapped in robes, and he always smells faintly of thyme. Not because he cooks, no. He just carries herbs in his sleeves like a walking apothecary. He doesn't speak much. Tonight, though, he shuffles in holding a bundle of dried lavender, which he crumbles into a small clay dish by the window. Helps keep the beetles out, he mutters. Not to you exactly, but into the room. Also calms the soul. And the cat. Rufus snorts, unconvinced. Brother Gervis sinks onto a bench with the slowness of collapsing wood. We used to have 2 cats, he says suddenly, eyes distant. The other one ran off with the cartographer. You blink. He nods solemnly. Love at first scratch, they said. You don't ask for details. Here's a historical tidbit that sounds like fiction, but isn't. In the 13th century, a manuscript from a Polish monastery has paw prints clearly stamped across the page, left behind by a cat who walked over the ink while the scribe was away. The monk noted it in the margin with quiet annoyance. Proof that even in solemn silence, chaos has claws. You walk slowly to the Chronicles again. Something about it draws you. It doesn't have the smell of ordinary books. It smells like history warmed by fur and fire. Most people don't know, Gervis murmurs, but there's a hidden pocket in the back cover. Used to be for messages, secrets even, foolish things. U-turn? Secrets? He nods, lips pressing thin. Every monk's allowed 1 letter in their lifetime, to be sealed in the Chronicle. No signature, no name, just words. It's tradition. and no one's allowed to open another man's letter. He leans back, closing his eyes. Some think that's where the true history is. Not in the saints and kings, but in the regrets we didn't speak aloud. A moment of silence stretches between you. Then, quietly, Rufus sneezes. It's enough to make Gervais chuckle. "Bless you," he says, and stands with the help of his walking stick. "Don't stay up too late. This place gets strange after midnight." And with that, he's gone. You return your gaze to the book. That loose thread is still there, teasing you. Just one tug. Just one? No, not yet. Instead, you lie back on the stone floor, your head cushioned by your folded cloak, eyes half-lidded as you listen to the night noises. The shift of beams, the whisper of wind, and Rufus snoring softly, like a purring metronome. And maybe, just maybe, the Chronicles dreaming. Morning slips into the monastery like a soft-footed messenger. No trumpets, no declarations. Just a slow warming of the stone walls and a cautious glow pressing through the high-arched windows. You open your eyes to find Rufus sitting on your chest. He's staring at you with the unsettling intensity of someone who knows exactly how many hours you slept and is judging you for all of them. "Good morning," you mutter. He blinks, then steps off with the delicate precision of a ballerina made of velvet and contempt. Around you, the monastery begins to stir. Distant clinks of bowls, sandals scuffing on flagstones, monks murmuring morning psalms in unison off-key, but sincerely. You sit up, stretch, and brush fur from your tunic. It's in places you didn't know existed. Rufus has been generous. Today, you're joining Brother Otto in the library annex. Otto is responsible for cataloging the monastery's lesser-known texts recipes, maps, field medicine, and an entire shelf labeled Uncertain Allegories. Otto is a round man with eyebrows like startled hedgehogs. He greets you with a nod and hands you a scroll. "This," he says, "is an inventory of lost books." You glance at the scroll. It's a list, but not of titles. Just phrases. The Prayer of the Burning Goat, the Third Gospel of Mud, an accurate calendar. Most of these, Otto explains, were written once and never copied again. Lost to fire, water, or very bad spelling. You raise an eyebrow. Some, he adds, may not have existed at all. One fact you'll like. Scholars have recovered lost texts from reused parchment. In the Middle Ages, monks often scraped older writing from vellum to reuse the material. These recycled documents are called palimpsests. Some of them have revealed works from ancient Greece, hidden under centuries of inked-over prayers. Rufus slinks into the annex, tail flicking like a pendulum of disapproval. He hops onto a pile of documents, promptly knocking over half of them. He's selective, Otto notes. Likes the older ones. Doesn't care for poetry. Rufus sneezes in agreement. While Otto rummages for a quill, you take a seat by the window, gazing out at the garden. A group of novices are already gathering herbs, nettle, comfrey, feverfew. The air smells green, fresh, alive. Here's something obscure. One medieval herbal guide recommends using basil to tame restless spirits of the knees. What exactly constitutes a ghostly knee tantrum is, tragically, lost to time. Otto clears his throat. "Tell me," he says, "have you ever written anything that vanished? You consider. Diaries, maybe. A half-finished poem. A letter never sent." "We all have," he says. "The Chronicle doesn't remember everything. But the library forgets selectively. He pats a scroll like it's a sleeping cat. We hide things. On purpose. Not just in shelves, but in routine. In silence. You look around at the dust motes drifting in the sunlight. The endless rows of leather-bound sleep, and you believe him. Rufus stretches and knocks over a cup of ink. You sigh. Otto sighs. Rufus blinks with no remorse whatsoever. Time for breakfast, Otto says, with the resigned air of someone who has cleaned ink from a cat before. You leave the annex behind, but your mind lingers. The lost books, the Chronicle, the hidden pocket, the paw prints across time, and the feeling growing stronger that Rufus knows more than he lets on. Let's keep walking softly. You step into the refectory, and the scent of morning bread greets you like an old friend wearing yesterday's robes. It's warm, nutty, with a faint note of overboiled barley. Monks line the long wooden tables, heads bowed, hands folded, chewing with the solemnity of men who've learned the difference between hunger and flavor. Brother Pascal is already seated, eyes closed, chewing a bite of what may or may not be edible. He motions for you to join, sliding over a chunk of brown bread that could double as a self-defense tool. Chew slowly, he advises. Unless you're confident in your dental legacy, you take a cautious bite. It's earnest. The refectory walls are lined with painted saints, all staring down in mutual judgment or perhaps envy, depending on how divine the cooking is today. The room hums with soft conversation. Nothing loud. This is a place where silence is honored, even when everyone's clearly thinking the same thing. More salt would be a blessing. Pascal leans in and whispers, "You hear about the Chronicle last night?" You nod slowly, unsure what he means. He raises an eyebrow. Willem says it moved. Now, normally that phrase might apply to any number of things, emotions, confessions, extremely old furniture. But Pascal means it literally. He continues, said the pages were turned. No one near it. Just old Rufus there, purring like a thundercloud. You glance at the end of the refectory. Sure enough, Rufus sits by the hearth, grooming one paw like a gentleman polishing a cane, completely unbothered by rumors of magical manuscripts. Here's your historical fact of the hour. Many medieval texts were believed to have mystical properties. Books weren't just information. They were relics. Some monks swore that certain manuscripts could heal illness, summon visions, or even combust when opened by the wrong hands. Superstition met scholarship in a dimly lit hallway, and neither backed down. Back at the table, Pascal rips off another piece of bread and dips it in honey. Not the first time, he murmurs. I've seen odd things in that room. Candles relighting themselves. That old book whispering. You pause. Whispering? Only at night. And only if you're lonely. You glance at Rufus again. He sneezes once and promptly curls into a loaf shape. The picture of indifference. One strange tidbit you wouldn't expect. In some monastic circles, monks swore by the spiritual presence of animals as messengers. Bees, birds, even cats, believed to carry silent warnings or divine cues. The line between nature and mystery was always thin. Brother Pascal leans back with a sigh. I don't know if books can whisper, but I know silence can get awfully loud. The bell rings, marking the end of the meal. Monks stand in practiced unison, bowls collected, crumbs swept with humility. You follow them out into the morning light, Rufus trailing behind like a furry punctuation mark. He walks ahead, tail twitching, past the cloister, through the garden, toward the scriptorium once again. You follow without thinking, and as you re-enter the quiet world of quills and candlelights, you see it. The chronicle is open, not just unlatched, not just rustled, open, and a page you don't remember seeing before sits square in the center. The ink is fresh. The date is today. No one else is in the room, just you and the cat, who hops up onto the bench, curls his tail, and watches you read. Let's keep going. The ink is still drying. You lean over the open page, heart doing a very non-monastic thing in your chest. The handwriting is delicate, precise like the work of a scribe who wasn't in a hurry, yet still didn't want to be caught. The text reads, "On this morning, a stranger in borrowed robes witnessed the breath of the book. The cat approves." This is rare. You read it twice, maybe 3 times. Rufus, unhelpfully, steps onto the parchment and sits down, right on the fresh ink. You gently nudge him aside, only mildly afraid of divine retribution. The next line, "Ask the bee." You glance around. There are no bees, just shelves, scrolls, and the overwhelming smell of slightly scorched ink. This is the point where most sensible people would walk away. Go find Brother Otto. Ask questions. Maybe confess to a vision. But you don't, because you've started to suspect something unusual. The chronicle is paying attention. You look back to the page. Ink has begun to blur slightly under Rufus's paw prints. The words soak into the parchment like secrets into old stone. Remember the thread you saw? It's still there, still waiting. But before your hand reaches for it, something buzzes in your ear. A bee. You flinch, because bees don't belong here. Not in July, not indoors. Not inside a sealed monastery, where the windows are older than arithmetic. It hovers briefly above the chronicle, then darts toward the far wall, toward the alcove where no one ever goes. You follow. The alcove is narrow, tucked behind a shelf of devotional poetry that no one's read since a monk accidentally rhymed salvation with constipation. Dust hangs in the air like stage fog. The bee dances near a small recess in the stone. Inside is something wrapped in cloth. You hesitate. Unwrap it. It's a book, not as large as the chronicle, but bound in the same worn leather. And etched on the spine, barely visible, is a tiny drawing of a cat. Here's your historical highlight. Some medieval monasteries created sister books, texts, meant to be paired or read in sequence, with cross-references and marginal cues. They were often split across distant abbeys to prevent total loss in case of fire or invasion. The chronicle may not be alone. You open the smaller book. Inside, stories. Not of saints or martyrs, but of ordinary monks. Their fears, their jokes. One entry talks about a contest to see who could sneak the most raisins out of the refectory undetected. Another tells of a monk who trained a mouse to retrieve crumbs, calling it Brother Cheese. Some of it's crude, some of it poetic. All of it feels human. Rufus appears beside you. You didn't hear him come in. He glances at the open book, then curls up beside it, like he's guarding not just paper, but memory. You close the book gently, rewrap it, return it to its niche. As you step back into the main hall, the chronicle remains open, the fresh ink now dry, but there's something new beside it. A single bee's wing, delicate as lace, resting atop the page like a bookmark. You pick it up, tuck it away. There's more to find, but not all at once. This book has its own pace, and Rufus has already turned the next page. Let's keep wandering. You return to the scriptorium later that day, hoping for silence, maybe clarity, but instead, you walk into a minor disaster. A shelf has collapsed. Scrolls and bound manuscripts are scattered across the floor like the aftermath of a very polite paper riot. Several monks hover nearby, debating whether to blame humidity, structural weakness, or divine mischief. Brother Lambert, a man so tall he seems to fold in on himself when entering doorways, looks at the mess and sighs. The shelf had opinions, he mutters. Unstable ones. You kneel to help, brushing dust from the covers. Rufus watches from a distance, eyes half closed, tail flicking like a clock, too bored to tick. As you gather the scattered scrolls, one catches your eye. It's unmarked, bound in plain linen, no label on the edge. You unroll it slightly. Inside, there's music. Not audible, not actual sound, just notation. Medieval musical notation, to be precise. The kind that looks more like little black flags than notes. The heading reads, Hymn for the Feast of Forgotten Saints. That's not a real feast day. At least, not in any calendar you've seen. You show it to Brother Lambert. He squints, adjusts his spectacles, and murmurs, That's odd. We don't keep musical records in the scriptorium. You both glance toward Rufus, who yawns. Now here's your fact of the day. Many monasteries used a special musical notation called neumes in the early medieval period, before modern musical staff notation. These were hand-drawn and often ambiguous, requiring oral tradition to interpret. A sort of musical shorthand. Some of these chants are still undeciphered, locked away in time, because no one remembers how they were meant to sound. Lambert touches the scroll lightly. We had a brother once, Brother Silas. Said he heard music when he prayed beside the Chronicle. You raise an eyebrow. What kind of music? He shrugs. Said it sounded like bells underwater. Or bees singing. Rufus sneezes. Again. You're starting to think that's his version of punctuation. One curious tidbit you won't find in most books. Some monks genuinely believed music could serve as a ladder to heaven, not metaphorically. A literal vibrational bridge. Chanting wasn't just art, it was spiritual architecture. You look again at the notation. It's clear but incomplete. Some notes are missing or smeared. There's an odd mark in the corner, a paw print, faint, but undeniably feline. This time not in ink, in wax. Rufus stretches and walks away. You roll the scroll carefully and place it aside. Brother Lambert begins picking up the rest of the mess. You notice a dent in the wall where the shelf hit. Behind it, there's something carved barely visible. A few letters. SC 1249. You brush dust away. The rest of the carving is worn, but it looks like coordinates, or maybe a reference. To what? You don't know. Yet. Lambert notices. Could be initials, or a shelf code. The older monks used a system before the fire burned most of the records. Historians still debate whether that fire was caused by lightning, a kitchen mishap, or a monk who tried to heat tea on a candle. You make a mental note to check the Chronicle again. Perhaps it knows more. Perhaps it's already told you something you missed. For now, the bells ring vespers. Time slides forward. Shadows lengthen. Rufus disappears down a corridor like a whisper wrapped in whiskers. You follow. Evening once again. The air tastes of lavender smoke and pine dust. You step outside for a moment to clear your head. The cloister is bathed in gold. the garden quiet save for the soft muttering of herbs in the breeze. Rufus pads beside you, silent. You feel like you're being escorted not by a cat, but by a curator. You sit on a stone bench. Bees hum around the flowering sage. Somewhere nearby, Brother Otto sings gently to the lettuces. They've been growing surprisingly well this year. You think of the coordinates SC 1249. You think of the Chronicles' mysterious new entries, the ghostly music, the hidden sister book. It's all starting to connect, or unravel. The bench you're sitting on is carved with a Latin phrase, verba volant, scripta manent. Words fly, writing remains. Another fact for your slow-burning mind. This phrase was a common medieval motto, a reminder that speech may charm, but writing persists. It was a warning and a hope. Words etched into parchment had power. They survived plagues, fires, even memory loss. You close your eyes, breathing deep. The garden smells are real. The rest, you're less certain. You feel Rufus leap up beside you, then onto your lap. He weighs more than he looks. He curls up, purring. Here's a weird truth. In some remote monasteries, cats were said to absorb dreams. Sleep beside one, and it would take your worries, purr them away, and send them quietly into the walls. No one knows where the idea came from. No one dares test it twice. You gently stroke his back. His fur is warm, alive. Time slips. Your breath slows. And somewhere in the monastery, the page turns again. The chronicle waits. And you're not entirely sure who's writing who. Later that night, something pulls you from sleep. It's not a sound exactly more like the absence of one. A pressure in the silence. The kind that makes old stone creak and candle flames shiver. You sit up slowly, still on the bench in the cloister, with Rufus curled like a comma at your side. The moon is full, pouring silver across the monastery, in a quiet that feels carefully arranged. Rufus lifts his head, ears twitching. He stares toward the north transept. Then he jumps down and walks. No hesitation. You follow, because of course you do. You've learned by now that when Rufus moves with purpose, strange things follow like cats who ignore you until you're in mortal danger, and then casually lead you to safety. You move through the dark corridors, past frescoes of saints with hopeful eyes, past a small wooden door you've never noticed before. Rufus stops there, scratches once, and the door swings open. Now, this is the point where your modern brain might protest. Secret rooms? Magic doors? This isn't Narnia, surely. But monasteries are older than reason sometimes, built with instinct and geometry and a touch of mischief. You enter. The chamber is small and circular, with walls lined in carved wood. It smells like dry earth and cinnamon bark. In the center is a pedestal. On it yet another book. Not the Chronicle, not the sister book. This one is thinner, more fragile, bound in blue leather, cracked with age. You open the cover. No ink, just pressed flowers. Pages and pages of them. Wild herbs, crushed violets, feverfew, rue, lavender, stiff but intact. Each one carefully placed, labeled in a fine, looping script. Remedy for grief, to sleep without dream, to remember what time has taken. And then, near the center, a page with no flower, only this note: the cat has never forgotten. Rufus sits beside you now, not watching the book watching you. There's something knowing in his gaze. as if he's seen more midnight wanderers than you could guess, as if every pressed petal in this strange book was once touched by hands that trembled like yours. Your historical fact tonight: monks often kept herbal records for healing, long before modern medicine. Some of these plant-based remedies were effective. Others were, generously, experimental. There are records of concoctions meant to cure melancholy, using wine, opium, and crushed pearls. But this book isn't medicinal, not strictly. It feels more like a prayer, or a preservation of griefs no one had time to speak aloud. You find one more note, scribbled in a tight margin. I miss the old songs, the ones only the bees remember. Rufus curls against your foot. You stay for a long time, breathing in the dry scent of memory. Then gently, carefully, you close the blue book and leave it as you found it. Let's keep moving softly. By morning, the wind changes. It carries the scent of rain before rain, a hushed kind of warning that makes the trees stand still and the birds rethink their commitments. The monastery wakes slowly, like dough rising. You pass Brother Willem in the hallway. He's humming a tune that sounds suspiciously like the unknown hymn you found yesterday. Catchy, you say. He startles. I dreamed it. There were bees, he says, blushing, singing. Of course there were. You head back to the scriptorium. A new page lies open on the Chronicle. No one admits to turning it. It reads, "The flowers were pressed to preserve what words could not. The music was not lost, only waiting for the right silence." There's something else beside the book now. A small wooden token, carved into the shape of a paw. Delicate, burnished. You pick it up carefully and feel something carved on the underside. SC 1249, the code. The carving behind the fallen shelf. You turn toward the shelves again. There's an index system now hastily repaired after the collapse, but SC doesn't match any current row. You ask Otto? He shrugs. Old classification. Scriptorium Codex. Might have been the original archive. Lost after the reorganization of 1471. He snorts. They tried to alphabetize the sacred texts. Chaos ensued. Rufus, as usual, appears when most needed and least expected. He walks to the far corner, jumps onto a low ledge, taps it once with his paw. You kneel and examine it. A wooden panel, different grain than the others. You press. It opens. Inside is a single scroll, faded, brittle, titled Chronicle of the Beekeeper's Cat. You unroll it carefully. It's a story, a parable maybe. It tells of a monastery once guarded by bees, tended by a mute beekeeper and his cat. The cat never left the archive. The bees sang the hours. The chronicle wrote itself. The story ends with this line: "When the last bee sleeps, the cat remembers alone." Here's your peculiar tidbit. There is an obscure monastic tale from 12th century Spain about a beekeeper who taught his hives to return to the abbey bell rather than to flowers. No proof it happened, but the abbey's bell tower has bee-sized entry holes carved into it. Make of that what you will. You hold the scroll a little tighter. Rufus blinks slowly. Outside, the rain begins. A soft, ancient rhythm. A lullaby in water. The chronicle turns another page. Let's keep listening. The rain doesn't let up. It taps against the leaded windows like 1,000 gentle fingers, soothing and insistent. The monastery dims. The light turned to pewter, as if even the sun has paused to read the chronicle. You sit again by the great book. It seems larger now, heavier, but maybe that's just your sense of it changing. Rufus lies curled beside it, tail wrapped neatly around his paws, eyes half-lidded but watching. The page is new. Another entry has appeared. There are more stories than there are saints, more pages than time. Not all chronicles are written with ink. You trace the words with your eyes, feeling them settle into the grooves of your brain like seeds dropped into old soil. Across the scriptorium, Brother Gervas hums to himself, stirring a pot of ink with something that looks suspiciously herbal. Ink doesn't like rain, he mutters, turns moody. You nod, as if that makes sense. Because frankly, at this point, it does. He hands you a scrap of parchment. A poem is scrawled across it, clumsy and sweet. A cat, he walks where whispers sleep, through vaulted halls and silence deep. He guards the tales we dare not say, and purrs the darkest thoughts away. Wrote it last night, Gervas says. Been dreaming in rhyme lately. Unhealthy, probably. You smile. Rufus sneezes, which has somehow become part of your daily soundtrack. Now for your historical fact. In medieval monasteries, poetry wasn't just devotional. It was also mnemonic. Rhymes helped monks memorize long passages of scripture or theology. And occasionally, they snuck in jokes or irreverent verses, tucked between prayers like raisins in bread. You tuck Gervas's poem into your robe. It feels oddly important. As the rain continues, you remember the blue flower book, the bee song hymn, the scroll of the beekeeper's cat, and always, always Rufus. You decide to return to the alcove. Maybe there's more, and there is. Behind the pedestal, you notice a faint mark on the wall, a square outline. You push. Another niche. This one holds something unexpected. A small bell. Bronze, no inscriptions. Just old, worn smooth by time or touch. You ring it once. The sound is soft, not loud, not clear, but it hums through the air like a memory trying to resurface. Rufus appears behind you, tail high. He walks to the bell, rubs his face against it once, then sits down. You stare at the little bronze bell, then look at the chronicle. Another line has appeared. To wake the bees, ring gently. To wake the past, listen harder. The fire crackles in the hearth behind you. Outside, the rain sings. And for just a moment, you think you hear a low, distant hum like 1,000 wings turning in slow harmony. Let's keep listening. Closer this time. The next morning arrives without much ceremony. The rain has stopped. Mist coils through the cloister garden, wrapping rosemary and sage in a shroud of quiet. You walk with purpose now, or at least with a cat. Rufus leads you to the tower. You've avoided the bell tower, until now. It looms above the monastery, like a watchful thought, ancient, moss-covered, slightly leaning in the way that makes one nervous about physics. But the little bronze bell has stayed with you. Not physically, you left it in the niche, but the sound has echoed in your chest ever since you rang it. Or perhaps it rang you. The tower stairs are narrow, spiraled, and less than enthusiastic about visitors. Your steps echo with every turn. Dust rises from stone. And then halfway up, you find the carvings. Small bees, dozens of them, etched into the walls in a spiraling pattern, as if they were following you upward. Some are crude, some incredibly intricate. A few shimmer faintly, as if touched by gold leaf long ago. One has a cat face. You're not even surprised anymore. Here's your fact for this climb. In some parts of Europe, bells were believed to communicate with animals, particularly bees. During funerals, monks would ring the abbey bell softly to inform the hives of a death. It was considered rude not to. You reach the top, the bell chamber. It's quiet, until Rufus meows once, loud and sharp. A panel in the far wall creaks, opens. You step inside. It's not a room, exactly, more like a hollow behind the bell mechanism. Inside, wooden slats, a small bench, and a book. A thick one, covered in dust. You open it. It's another chronicle. No title, no saints. Just names. Dozens, hundreds. Some scratched in ink, others written in charcoal. A few carved directly into the pages with a blade, each with a date, and a single line. Brother Milo waited too long to speak. Sister Agnes hid the besom. Benedict listened but forgot to write it down. Rufus always remembers. You pause. Rufus curls beside the book, tail twitching. He seems to be waiting. You whisper, "Are you the last witness?" The wind outside picks up. The bell groans. You turn the last page, blank, except for a line written in a hand you recognize. It's yours. I heard the music. I followed the cat. I remember now. But you never wrote that, did you? The bell tower shivers. Somewhere far below, the chronicle turns again, and the humming returns. Low, beautiful, ancient. You close the book. You're not done yet, but you're closer. Let's keep going. The wind follows you back down the bell tower, curling around your legs like a curious ghost. You descend with care, the stairs seemingly a little steeper than before. Or perhaps your legs are simply more aware, now aware of the weight you carry, the chronicle you've seen, the bell that remembers things. Rufus walks ahead, his tail swaying in slow arcs. He doesn't look back. He never does. You reach the cloister, where morning has finally admitted defeat. The mist has burned away, revealing sunlight so soft it seems embarrassed. The lavender bush near the scriptoria window trembles gently, bees beginning their work with the same industrious calm the monks emulate, though with more buzzing and fewer opinions about cheese. You walk the long hallway again. The familiar scent of parchment and candle wax greets you. Someone is boiling herbs in the kitchen fennel, you think, or maybe something invented purely to smell like fennel. A monastery smells like routine. But you know better now. You pass the tapestry again, the one with the cat on the battlement. You stop. There's something new. Near the cat's feet, almost invisible, someone has stitched a tiny line of bees, 6 of them, flying toward a crack in the stone wall depicted in the weave. The thread is gold. That wasn't there before. Brother Anselm walks by, holding a stack of books taller than your ambitions. He nods. Lovely weather. You look like someone who's seen the ghost in the cellar. You blink. Is there a ghost in the cellar? Probably not, he says, though no one's checked in a while. He continues on, whistling a tune that sounds suspiciously like bees humming. Here's your historical nugget to keep you company. In the 14th century, tapestry was used not just for warmth, but as communication. Symbols and motifs were stitched in as visual codes, political, religious, even romantic messages hidden in fabric. The monks, of course, lean toward cats and saints. Occasionally both. You head to the cellar. Rufus is already waiting at the door. The wooden stairs creak with complaint. The air is cooler here, a little damp. Smells of salt and stones and buried time. You pass barrels, shelves, pickled things, dried herbs. You reach a small door, unlocked. Inside, stone walls. A single stool, and a scroll, not stored on a shelf, just resting casually in the center of the floor. You unroll it. The handwriting is old, faded. If the chronicle stops writing, the cat will guard the last line. If the bell forgets, wake it gently. If the bees stop singing, pray harder. If you find this, remember the taste of honey, the rhythm of wings, the feeling of not being alone. There's a paw print at the bottom. Rufus sniffs it, then curls up on the stool. He closes his eyes and begins to purr. The sound fills the room, echoes, and in the faintest corner of your ear, you hear it again, the hum, growing stronger. Not just a sound, but a pattern, a message, like a memory sewn into silence. Let's keep going. Something's waiting. The purring continues through the night. You barely remember going to sleep. You only remember the warmth of Rufus beside you, the rustle of old paper, and that hum constant, delicate, threading through your thoughts like a silken needle. You wake to a bell, not loud, not frantic, just a single perfect chime. You sit up. Rufus is gone. You follow the sound through the quiet morning. The monastery is hushed, as if even the bricks are listening now. The chapel door is open. You step inside. The light streams through stained glass, casting jeweled colors on the stone floor. Dust motes dance lazily in the beams. The air smells like beeswax and thyme. And there, in the center aisle, lies the chronicle. Open, alone. You walk to it slowly, like approaching something sacred or very fragile. Your fingers hover over the page. Words are still appearing. The reader returns. The listener stays. The cat has done his part. You flip the page. It's blank, except for a faint outline paw-shaped. You wait, and then more words. If you are reading this, the cat has chosen you. The chronicle survives by being remembered, not copied, not translated, just remembered. You sit down beside it. The chapel is very quiet. The wind outside picks up slightly, but it's not cold. It sounds like breathing. You look up. Above the altar is a small window, shaped like a bee. Or maybe that's your imagination now. You think about the bell, the bees, the tapestries, the secret songs, the strange little poems and the recipes hidden in the margins. The poem Brother Gervis gave you, the list of names. The names scratched with ink and charcoal and the edge of a blade. And Rufus. You think of Rufus. You turn the page. The chronicle writes one last line. The cat has gone to sleep. Your turn now. You close the book. There's no weight in your hands. Just warmth and silence, the kind that holds stories. Let's turn the final page together and let it settle. The chronicle is quiet now. You walk the garden paths one last time. The lavender has bloomed fully. The rosemary hums with bees. The old fig tree has dropped a fruit, and it lies soft and bursting on the stone. You reach the alcove where the chronicle first found you. It's empty now, but the smell of parchment still lingers, and the softest trace of fur. Rufus is nowhere to be seen. You sit on the bench. Breathe. Your hands remember the curve of the pages, the texture of vellum smoothed by 1,000 fingers before yours. Your ears hold the echo of the purring. Your chest still feels the resonance of the bell. Somewhere far away, someone lights a candle, and someone else closes a book. Maybe they're the same. Maybe they're not. You stand slowly and walk through the cloisters, past the herb beds, past the scriptoria, past the tapestry where the golden bees now glint fully in the light. You exit the monastery gates. The world beyond is wide and humming. Your final fact, soft and small. In some medieval legends, cats were said to walk between worlds, not as demons, as some accused, but as guides, quiet watchers, keepers of doorways between memory and forgetting. Rufus was no ordinary cat, but then again, no cat is. And if you ever return, should you feel the Chronicles stirring again, you'll know the way. Follow the bees. Listen for the bell. And if you see a golden tabby sleeping on an old book, let him nap. He's done his part. Now it's your turn to remember. And now we come to the end of our little tale. The candle flickers low. The pages rest still. Somewhere in the distant cloisters of your imagination, the cat stretches once, purrs, and curls back into his warm patch of light. Let the hum of memory carry you gently now, like bees floating among flowers, unbothered by time, by questions, by anything that isn't this moment. Breathe in the scent of lavender and honey. Breathe out the rustle of old paper. Let your thoughts drift as if they too are words on a forgotten page. Words that need no audience, no meaning. Just space to float and time to soften. Let the wind carry away the noise of your day. Let the bell in the tower ring once more in your mind and fade. Fainter, farther. You are safe now. There are no questions here that need urgent answers. Only stories that dream. Only cats that guard. Only bees that hum. Let sleep wrap itself around you like a heavy wool cloak. Let the silence turn silver. Let the soft paw prints of forgotten things lead you deeper, slower, kinder. You did well, traveler, and now you rest. Good night.